So this is my chapter 9 discussion. So I chose to answer questions 2, 3, and 4. So question 2, what explains the second shift on page 200, dubbing the extra domestic labor that women typically do the second shift? She goes on to say that we should also note that much of the work women do in the home is generally more taxing and less gratifying. In what ways can you agree with this statement, and in what ways can you disagree with this statement? What would the authors say about your response? How would they explain it according to the text? Be sure to cite your text in the response. So I totally agree with this statement, honestly. It tends to be in relationships, especially when there's children involved, that if a woman decides to work or if she needs to work to support the family, she comes home and ends up doing like the cleaning and cooking dinner and taking care of the kids, putting them to bed, things like that, and it ends up being a second shift of work. I know that I have been there, at least with I can't say with domestic things, but going from school to work, and then doing homework too on top of that. In high school, it was really difficult because school is a full-time job in itself when you're in high school or middle school or whatever, on top of having another job right after school. So what I ended up doing was I was at school at 7 o'clock in the morning. I would go to school until 2:45, and then I needed to report to work at 3 o'clock and work till 7, and then come home and do all the other things that I needed to do. I basically had no time to sleep. So I completely agree with the second shift that women tend to have to do. I don't really find a way that I disagree with this statement. Every example that I've seen of families or whatever, this has been the case. I think that the authors would probably agree with me. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought, so I'm going to move on. So question 3, why do you believe we as humans choose friends and groups who are similar in terms of race, class, age, and gender? Do you think we find comfort being in close relationships with those who mirror our own identity? What would the author say about your response? How would they explain it according to the text? So I think that we choose our friends based on what we can identify with. I know for me in particular, it's hard for me to relate to others if I don't understand the experience that they've been through. So when I meet people that have a similar background to me, I instantly click with them because they get it. They understand how life is the way we've experienced it. But I would also say that I make a lot of friends with people who aren't like me too. So I can't say it's like a definitive, I find comfort in being in a close relationship with somebody that has a similar identity. But it makes it slightly easier, I would say, but not necessarily comforting. I think that the authors might agree with me. I feel like when I pick my friends, I just pick people who I get along with personality-wise, not necessarily identity or race or gender. I tend to get along with everyone. At least I try to. So I don't know if the authors would really agree with me on that or how they would argue that. And I think they would explain that, yes, I find comfort in people with the same identity as me, but it's not necessarily a, thing that I gravitate towards, if that makes sense. I think that's the word I was looking for. Alright, and finally, question 4. In the text, Woods states, additionally, while women engage in more sensitive, comforting messages than men do, both sexes are more sensitive when trying to comfort women than when trying to comfort men. Why do you think that both sexes are more sensitive when trying to comfort women than when trying to comfort men? What would the author say about your response? How would they explain it? So, I think that because we've all grown up in such a gender stereotyped world, we're all naturally gonna be a little more sensitive with women just because women are more sensitive, according to stereotypes and stigmas. So, I mean, but I tend to be sensitive with guys too. If one of my friends is upset and he's having a hard time, I'm gonna be sensitive with him. But then again, that could just be because I'm a woman. Whatever. So I think that I really think that everyone's kind of conditioned to be more sensitive with women than with men. So even men tend to be a little more sensitive when talking with a woman or trying to comfort them because, I mean, I'm not saying that all do because I've experienced some people that definitely don't do that, but I think that's just kind of the norm with how gendered our society is. I think the authors would agree with me just because I wouldn't say that there's like a reason behind it, but like it's just because we've all been conditioned that way, so it's kind of natural. It comes naturally. So yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening.